You give them the good stuff, they come back.
Can't say away, dude. Can't say
Yeah. So actually, this is a special event for us, just because it's I'm gonna post this in my podcast, Real Talk with Mario, because Spencer has such an awesome success story with me, and he's gonna officially become a nomad. And you guys know I've been sharing about my nomadic journey, and I want to talk about his journey too. So it's gonna be kind of like an ongoing conversation about his project, and I want him to talk about his project first, and then he has some questions, and I've got some questions for him that we're gonna free flow, and hopefully that you get some value out of it today. We're always gonna keep it real. We're always gonna keep it honest. You know, this is where we have real, raw conversations about every single thing: life, success, relationships. So this is what it's about. But Spencer, tell everyone what your project is and what you want to achieve, a mission that you have, and love to just expand on that so they have some context when I answer your questions.
Well, I think you said something really interesting earlier. It's like we wanted to do this podcast for a long time, and we're finally doing it. It's sort of like you and Kala want to do Nomad forever, and now you're doing it, right? I want to be in shape for a long time. Now you know what I mean? Now I'm doing it. And so Love John Cooper started in Asheville, North Carolina. I was just sitting by myself one day meditating, and I knew very well what my purpose was. Like, I knew that I was a teacher. I know I love teaching people and things like that. And I knew my religious standing, like as a religious person, doing the will of the universe, manifestation, but I didn't really know how to interact with people very well. I'd always been sort of socially anxious, socially choppy. So I was thinking, like, what do I do? So one day I went on this magic mushroom trip with my friend Grayson, and we just walked around Asheville, North Carolina. And I would never really do that, but I was looking for answers. We end up in this like gay queer bar, and I meet the lead drag queen in this bar. And I didn't really know where it came from. I just said, hey, could I interview you? Could I talk to you? And it's someone I would usually never really talk to or have an in-depth conversation with. But Priscilla Chambers became interview number 1. We went to this drag show. I felt very accepted and embraced by the community. And I was like, this is such a beautiful way to find connection and to become sort of less socially anxious, just going to these places I never really would before. And so that put me on a journey of going from Asheville, North Carolina to Los Angeles in a Greyhound bus. Just meeting a ton of people, whether it was Asheville, Las Vegas, just talking to all kinds of people from different walks of life. I eventually made it up to Canada to this little Buddhist temple, and I came back to California very ready to go. I'm going to go to Peru in South America. That's the next journey. Let's go. But then I was delayed for 4 years, or as a high school teacher, and it was a beautiful experience. I love being there, but that's what brings me here. I'm with you specifically because I'm trying to interview people who are like bright spots, or talk to people who just exude like positive energy, brotherhood, connectedness. And to me, you've always been like a very positive person, someone who brings me out of my shell. And I see you do that for people like, you know, whether it's Tony or Tim or Kala. You've just been on a really cool journey, so I want people to hear about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and you've been on a cool ass journey yourself, so I definitely want to be about it. And I have some questions for him as well, guys. But let's just get into it. Spencer, go ahead, answer your questions, and then I'll just flow with it and see how we go. So go ahead and speak to the mic too when you go to there.
Speak to the mic.
Just a little bit close, because it's powerful. I'm gonna cut all this shit out. Don't trip. Yeah, just like right here is good. All right, but yeah, go ahead. What was your first question?
Oh, for you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So the first question is like, you're just such a connective person. Like, you're very warm, you're very open, you have the ability to like be working out and to talk to people and to get them into your programs and things like that. I know just like a few days, was it yesterday, 2 days ago, we were at the beach?
2 days ago.
Was that 2 days ago? And just like the way you brought in all your friends, all these clients to, and we've done parties before at the Belterra and stuff like that, like pool days. I just wonder, like, how do you stay so relationship focused, and how do you like why is it that you treat people the way that you do? Was it sort of like that moment where you decided between this life and the next, or what brought you to be so like relationship focused and so positive in that way?
Oh man, it's because I realized that I can't go really far if I go by myself, and it's the African proverb that stuck with me, is that if you want to go fast, then go alone, but if you want to go far, then you must go together. And you know, for me, I've just tried to do it by myself the whole time for a long time in my development journey, and when I wanted to take the next level, I needed to be guided by someone, be connected with people, and I've grown the most when I've seen people in their own journeys. And as I develop my own leadership capabilities, I also realized that like if you take care of your people will take care of you, and that happiness is always better shared. You know, because I always thought it was like, oh, just stay for myself, like only I can get what I need to get done, or only should be in my journey. But I'm telling you, like, it's those people around you that really amplify that life, you know, like when you can share that win to that lover, or when you can like sweat those tears and go through like a hard, intense workout with a brother, like that, those are the experiences that can open up. Like if I didn't open up to the more people, I wouldn't have healed the way I healed too. So I feel like I'm more relationship focused these days because I know that together we go far.
No, it's really cool. Is it ever hard for you to do that? Like, do people get annoying? You know, it's like, oh, this guy didn't text me back, or like, this guy's not staying on track.
Man, I feel like I'm annoying. Like, I get like people who are really like just either ignore me because I maybe are a little bit overwhelming, but like I had to develop the skill. People look at me and they think I'm like this big extrovert dude, but I'm really introverted, and that's because I grew up like that. Like I had social anxiety. Like if you met me now, like back then, you would be confused of the person that I am now. I'm only extroverted very selectively. I have this button where like you get to choose when you're like want to be an introvert, and like, okay, I'm introverted. I can press the button whenever I want, and that's like the coolest thing because I developed the skills to be able to speak to people. And I also put myself into sales environments, like retail jobs, like a bunch of things where you have to engage with people and talk to people. Like every job that I had was majority sales, so I was always in a retail environment, which you have to talk to 30, 40 new people a day, even if I was nervous, even if I was this. And it's just like, it's just a skill. Personally, I would rather just want like 2-3 people around me, and I like it small, intimate. But I know that it's important to be around like a group of people and switch up the energy. But I feel like I get annoyed. Like, I mean, I get people annoyed. That's what I feel, because I'm just like always following up, checking up. If someone's committed with me and they're in my program or whatever it is, like I'm there, all in, you know. So I think it's the opposite when you say that.
Oh, that's cool. You know, it's like your vibe attracts your tribe. So, you know, everyone might not be for you. Your style of coaching might not be for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like when I was a teacher, there are certain kids that gravitated a lot towards me and my energy.
Yeah.
And other kids are like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, why is he that way? Why is he doing things like that?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really get everyone, but, you know, your vibe attracts your tribe. Un amigo es el espejo donde tú eres él. Like, the people you're supposed to be drawn to are going to be drawn to you.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
I think it's cool what you said about, like, I think that's what emotional intelligence is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you do a cold plunge, like no one really wants to do it. It
Yeah.
kind of sucks. It's like, oh, shiver, you know, burr. But to say, you know what, I'm going to do this because I know there's a benefit to it.
Yeah.
It sort of sounds like what you just said. Like, you know, I don't always want to be with this big group of people or put all this energy forward, but I know I can if I have to.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's the cool part of developing that skill, because I honestly, I'm very mindful of my energy, especially when you do a lot of healing work. You become a little bit more sensitive to energies. I feel like I'm more sensitive to like people and how they spread their energy out there. Even though I'm like this dude who can be infectious and energetic and just dance and express himself, like I'm super mindful of my energy just because I feel like energy is everything. And yeah, man, it's cool when you can take that note level, and it did take a lot of emotional intelligence. And I know you developed your emotional intelligence to a whole new level, which I want to talk about after. But let's go with your questions and then mine. So what was your other two questions?
Oh, yeah. Well, the other one's sort of connected to what you're saying about, like, oh, I'm introverted, but I can be an extrovert. It was sort of about the fact that you're going nomad now. So I know you and Carla are going to be in Costa Rica in, like, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In Pura Vida, 20s, just about. And I sort of wonder, like, I know why, obviously, because I'm going to be in Guatemala and Colombia and South and Central America. So I know we've had conversations about why you want to do that. But like, what do you hope to find there? Like, what answer do you think's waiting for you in Costa Rica, or just like the nomad life internationally?
I love that question, and it goes back to your first question. You're like, why are you so relationship focused? Why, you know? And I gave you guys the answer, but it's really to connect with community in a new level. Ya puedo hablar español, y eso es un idioma que no podía hablar hace, no sé, 2-3 años, y ya puedo hablar en conversaciones con gente. Y cuando yo estaba probando el Duolingo aplicación, estaba practicando porque yo miré a Spencer speaking Spanish so good, and I was like, whoa, my dude. Like, you know, I got Hondureño Venezolano blood in me, and I'm just like, where's my Spanish? Where is it? And Spencer inspired me to like really kick that into notch. And I mean, this day I'm like 100, almost 70 on Duolingo, and I got my first international client on Spanish fully, and that was amazing. And it's because I want to connect with Hispanic culture. That is what I want to get out of it. But what I really want to get out of it is like find my new community that I'm looking for, because as soon as I land, I'm going to settle in my spot, and I'm going to just go connect with all locals, practice my new skills in Spanish, like press that extroverted button that I'm probably gonna want to at that time, you know, but like really connect with the locals, like everything, like the salsa dancing, like the food, like the people there. I'm really excited for that. And I know like you are very, very like in love with Hispanic culture. I mean, that's why you're going all over all Central America. And yeah, man, that's what I want to find. I want to find a new level of men around me, men's group, entrepreneurs, athletes, and like see my girlfriend also grow in her sisterhood. So it's everything that Spencer says, Universal Brotherhood.
Okay. Well, it's like lots of things, you know, like poco a poco, un poquito se convierte mucho. So it's like with weights, with Spanish, with traveling, with this awesome place you guys have now, you know, you just like find a way to go one more, to elevate one up, stuff like that. So who knows, maybe we'll meet up in Costa Rica or something.
Yeah, it's definitely a plan. Definitely a plan.
Yeah, so like the last question that I sort of had on top of mind that I wrote before is, like, I remember you had a vision once. Have you told your story on here before?
Yes.
Like that?
Like, which one? On like
about,
podcast?
About smoking. It's like, oh, I was either going to smoke or...
I haven't actually, that's funny you say that. I haven't shared that yet.
Do you feel open to it?
Yeah, I'm open to it. That story, you want me to share it?
Yeah, I'll preface it because it goes into the thing. So I remember once Mario, and I'll let him tell the story obviously because this is to own, but he had this vision where he was about to smoke, and in that moment he's like, well, I could either do this and pursue this life, or I could go on this totally different path, and that's, you know, obviously the one you're aligned to right now, nomad, kala, all these champagne months and all that. So I guess the question is, like, for everybody out there, just like for normal people or anybody listening, you know, someone who doesn't necessarily want to do nomad or do the entrepreneur thing, like, how do you think, what is something that everybody could do to live more interconnectedly with other people? Like, whether a high school kid's watching or listening, my dad who's older is listening, someone from Nicaragua is listening, like, what advice would you give them about, like, how to pursue the best life and, like, how to be more connected and live more in brotherhood with other people? You know? Which is sort of like a three-part question, but I think
I know the best way to answer this. So,
nice.
In high school, I dated two girls, and one girl was named Molly. She was crazy. She loved EDM music. She just loved raving, you know, that type of girl, right? And then there was another girl. Her name was Crystal. And that was a crazy bitch because she would make you stay up late long. She's very skinny, like, makes you kind of like talk to yourself. And, you know, I dated Molly before I dated Crystal. And when I dated Molly, you know, the second time we went on a date, I had a seizure. And I almost died. And some random ass dude that I didn't even know just gave me CPR and just pounding and pounding and pounding on my chest and brought me back to life. And then I was still messed up, so I woke up and I tried to hug him and say, I love you, bro. Thank you for saving my life. But you would think that after that crazy ass date, I would stop dating this girl. And no, I was like, I'm going to break up with her and I'm going to go with somebody even more toxic, which is crystal meth. And the vision that Spencer was talking about was that right before I was going to smoke this Pookie Pipe, it was my third time smoking meth, I saw a vision that just portrayed the future that I was headed if I kept smoking that pipe. The people that were hurt because I died as a drug addict, and in that moment, like, I was snapping fingers, just like black in my vision. I was in this random ass backyard with some random ass dudes that I weren't even my friends. I like dropped the pipe, I jumped over the fucking fence, and I fucking ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just fucking ran. And that's the moment that I stopped doing hardcore drugs. That's the moment that I got reconnected to what really matters. And fitness is what saved my life. And through fitness, I started to build my body inside out, physically, mentally. And then I started to realize that spirituality is a muscle, like mentality is a muscle. And I started to see all these things as muscle. And it brought me this full togetherness to realize, like, I'm going to go help these people in such a way so they can transform inside out through emotional intelligence and fitness. And through that mission, it has evolved more and more and more. But I realized is that my pain turned to a message, my life test turned to a testimonial, and really that, you know, everyone has a great story, but you have to remember that you write your own story. Like, you hold the pen to that paper, and you are the author to that story. So when answering Spencer's question, is that, like, I feel like a lot of people forget that there's a pencil in that, like, paper that they're writing, and they can erase all the stories that isn't really helping them. You know what I mean? That isn't really serving them. And I just feel like it's my calling to make sure that specifically men live the best way possible. And I have to be a beaming light to show what's possible from someone who had all the odds stacked against him. Sexual abuse when he was young, started drug addiction very young, like minority, like parents were all immigrants. Like, dude, I was meant to be broke, I was meant to be stupid, I was meant to be a fuck up, and like, I could have chose that story, but I didn't. And it's time to rewrite your story and choose a story that you want and throw the plot twist that you want and make sure it's a story that's worth reading. So I just want everyone to be the best type of author, better the lack of words, and I would love to write that story with you, you know, and because, like I mentioned, together we go far. Happiness is better shared. Like, it's the relationship. We're relational beings. Like, we're meant to be around people. And I just feel called to, like, show that, like, if I can do this, dude, you can do this, because I never had the best cards dealt in my life.
No, yeah, thanks for sharing that, for sure. It's just interesting what you're saying, like, happiness is better shared. I read that first in a book called Into the Wild, and it's about a guy named Chris McCandless who, like, went off to live by himself.
Oh, I know this one, yes.
And then died. It's right over
crazy.
there.
It's a crazy book.
It's a crazy book. And that African proverb, too, like,
that's where I learned that, too, actually.
Yeah, so it's just interesting, because I've heard, you know, us use those expressions throughout the years, but it's fun to see them come together in, like, a singular narrative. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's... I was pointing to this. There's a happenstance, a piece of paper right here. So I think, like, narrative therapy is such a huge thing to, like, rewrite the internalized scripts that you have. Like, I have to do this, I have to be that way, yada yada. And future authoring is so powerful. Just, like, write down the life you want in 3 years. Yes. And then your roadmap becomes easier. It's like, oh, I want to buy a house, I should have this down payment, or read about real estate.
Yes.
Or I want to be in the 1,000-pound club. Maybe I should get a weightlifting coach, you know what I mean? So it just gives, like, a clear direction. I actually had my high schoolers do that. All 4 years I taught at the school in Santa Ana. And I always made a point, like, really write the future you want. Really, like, sky's the limit. You could live in a different country. You could become an artist. You can do whatever you want to do. Just write what you want and then pursue that as much as you can. Yeah. Because I don't think that, you know, maybe it was a God-given vision you had that night, or maybe it's just, you know, like, and I don't think everyone gets a God-given vision that way, but I think you can sort of, like, manufacture it to a certain extent. Like, not everyone does the magical mushroom trip and ends up in a queer bar. Not everybody does what you did. Yeah. But there's a way that you can have that insight into the future. It's actually pretty practical and fairly straightforward to do. Yeah.
I actually like that you mentioned that, because I know a lot of people who, like, dim their light because they didn't go through a certain crazy experience.
Right.
They didn't go homeless to build the business, to go live in their apartment, you know. They didn't, like, do the drugs at a young age and get that God-given vision, you know, took the shrooms, did this, had a life-death experience, whatever. But I just want to let you know, you're you. You have your own signature, energetic signature that is completely unique than anybody else. And that's why I say it just make sure it's a story that's worth writing. Like, whatever it looks like for you. Like, I could be saying the same shit, and Spencer could be saying the same shit, but somebody else can be getting it differently because it comes specifically from you. And that, I just want to hit that home. You're unique. You're you. Like, everyone else is taken. That's why you got to be you fully. So I just want to mention that because I think it's a great point there.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's pretty much all I had in terms of, like, the set questions I wanted to ask. I never, like, very flow with this, so it's not like interview question.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like, it's cool. I like it. You know, I like it.
That's that. But no, I'm excited for the South Central America arc. It's gonna be really fun. I was telling you earlier, like, if you're talking about future authoring, if I could go back to Mario from 2 years ago and just show him, like, a snapshot of your life from now, I think the version of you from 2 years ago would really like it. Or imagine the version of you from high school that's doing that insane, like, weight cut for wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine you were just able to visit this house for a day, see little Huxley downstairs, see Kala, see all these things. You'd be like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, that's amazing. I want that.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of have the power to do that, like, through future authoring.
For sure.
Not as visually, but it's like a
step
into it.
It's exactly what you write it down. What you say is going to come to flesh, you know?
Yeah.
I actually have a couple questions for Spencer. Man, what was, like, before we met, like, what were you emotionally and physically, and what made you be called to me? Because, like, I reached out to you in the beginning, I think 1 time or 2 times, and then, like, I don't think I ever followed up or, like, whatever, and then you just felt called to actually reach out to me. And I was very, very surprised, because this is a guy who's, like, what they call a silent follower, and, like, it's like he doesn't really engage in anything, but he's watching it and he's seeing it. And there's a lot of people out there that are like that, like, we connected, but they didn't, like, engage in the content that I put out because they want to keep to themselves. But I just want to ask you, where were you emotionally, physically before we met, and what made you call to, like, work together?
Well, I think something interesting to think about is, like, I'm not at the perfect level. You know, it's not like I'm at level 100 now. I was at level 0 before. When I started a new job, I was, like, at 205 pounds. I was pretty trim, had some pretty good definition, had a good workout routine. I just finished doing some outdoor conservation work for a year where I was, like, hiking every day. Relatively low calorie, high protein. So I was looking really good, feeling really good. And then I started this job in todo se derrumba. Like, all things fell apart. I went from, like, being 205 pounds to 230 in the span of, like, 4 months. And I just allowed this job to become so much for me that I really started neglecting my own self-care. I wasn't sleeping as well. I wasn't getting to the gym. I wasn't prioritizing nutrition. I wasn't getting to the sun for anything. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, things sort of just fell apart. And I thought, like, I've never really been in this situation before. I need some outside help. Like, in high school, I had basketball coaches. In college, I had friends I had lifted with. But since I was moving back to a relatively new area and none of my friends are around, it's like I really need someone to inspire me and to connect to me and someone who can build me up. And it was just my intention to get down to, like, 215 pounds, you know, which I'm at now sustainably, which is nice. But over time, it sort of changed a little bit. It's like you saw, I went through this relationship drama, and just, like, being, you know, 20, 25 pounds overweight, I was like, why am I messing up so much in these relationships? Why am I not valuing myself? Why do these things not seem to work out? And it sort of seems like you hit the same evolutionary stride as I did, where it started with fitness, and that's a great foundation for everyone.
Yep.
And then it became, like, sexual healing, and then it became inner child work, and then, you know, it became going abroad and doing emotional intelligence. So even though I'm not exactly where I want to be, I'm very proud of, like, the steps that I've taken. And I just got the vibe that you're sort of a person to help me on that journey, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this guy, like I said, just hearing his fucking whole talk about that, like, there was so much development towards him. And, you know, for me, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's hard to even get to level 100 when you're always constantly growing. Yep. And you're always seeing that next level. And I just appreciate Spencer because he's been, like, working with me, like I said, 3 years on and off, and he's stuck with me through those evolution periods for myself. Like he said, it was just fitness, emotional intelligence, then it became like relationship focused, then, you know, it became like more of a social dynamic thing. There was, like, so many different aspects to this that I feel like me and him crossed paths. But ultimately, this is really my last question, because there's so much depth in you, and I feel like we can go on and on just about everything. But 100%. I would love to ask you, who would you recommend a guy to work with me? Like, would it be a guy that is ready for a whole new fucking transformation, but I feel like in your own words, because you've seen, like, all versions of me, you know, like, who do you think would be ideal for just someone to even open up the world of, like, spiritual and, like, personal development with me?
Well, I think it's hard to say. I think it really comes down to, like, an individual person. I do think a lot about lots of my high school students, you know. Like, I think I made the comment earlier that, like, I had to do 4 years as a teacher before I went to South America. And that's not really entirely accurate, because I really did love working with those kids, like all my advisees, the 22 of them, who I mentioned in that other podcast. But, you know, when you ask me that question, my honest first gut reaction is younger people. You know, I know you talked about the idea of like opening a school one day, but I just see so many young men who have things like body dysmorphia, and young men specifically, like body dysmorphia. I can think of 3 of my advisees that didn't really have very strong male role models or fathers at all in their life. I can think of a lot of my guys that, you know, entered into these really toxic relationships thinking it would bring them happiness. I can think of 2 of my kids that abused drugs like fairly, like more than recreationally, right?
Sure.
And so I think those kids are the first people that come to mind. Like, it's easier to build strong men, like strong boys, than it is to repair broken men. And so I think lots of the work starts like preventatively early. So I think that would be the biggest impact. I can think of a few of my teacher friends, though, that I think would work fairly well, like people starting new jobs. I can think of one of my friends specifically who's, you know, kind of overweight, doesn't have a lot of confidence, somebody who's really just trying to get started. Because like you said, you know, we don't necessarily have to work together for the next 2 years. I'm on a very good roadmap myself. So I think it's somebody who's like looking to get started, someone who doesn't really know a lot about emotional intelligence, manifestation, someone who doesn't really know how to work out really, and they're trying to like find the ropes and things like that. I think you'd be a really good person for someone who's looking to get started on the journey.
I feel like he has a point on the younger demographic. Obviously I work with men who are like around my age or a little bit older, but the younger demographic is what ultimately will make the biggest impact, because he said that quote was that's fucking awesome. You said what you said, like it's a lot easier to build boys than broken men.
It's something like that.
That was a good line. I also feel like eventually in the future, once everything is set up and I have the resources, like I would love to start my own school to be able to focus on that fully, you know. But yeah, I love that, man. I appreciate that, and I agree about all that, and I had a good time just flowing with you and just expressing our journey. We're like both about to you're about to leave in October. Is there anything that you want to share about your nomadic journey or anything else that you have final thoughts on?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm glad we're doing this interview, because in 2 weeks, if all the dates work through, I'll have 50 interviews. And it's been my intention to get 50 interviews in each continent. So I have 50 in North America, which is Mexico, Canada, and the US. Because I went to Mexico City and did a podcast as like an interview. I went to Canada and got 4 or 5 up there. So it's just like sort of perfect timing, because I'll be exactly at 50 when I go to Central America. I'll be at Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. And there's a poem I share a lot that I think I'd like to finish with. And it's Al final del camino, mi dirán, has vivido, has amado, y yo sin decir nada habré el corazón lleno de nombres. At the end of the road, they'll ask me, have you lived, have you loved? And I, without saying anything, will open the heart full of names. So I think a lot about my brothers. I think a lot about you. I think a lot about the kids I've worked with, my friends, and things like that. And so I go down to Central America. I'm very ready for this next round of 50. I'm sort of scared because, I don't really know the country very well. I don't have a ton of friends there. But what I found coming from North Carolina out to California is when I put it in God's hands, when I put it into the universe and really prayed about it intentionally, good things happened. It wasn't always what I expected. Like, there's some people that turned me away. I had to spend a few nights in a Greyhound station with my little backpack and stuff. Money was kind of scary once or twice. But I found that when I really prayed, I knew I was doing the right thing. So I feel that very intentionally about going down to Central America, even though it's kind of scary to leave. So to your point from earlier, I think it is important that people know their signature, know their energy, and don't doubt it too much. Just sort of go for it. Yeah.
I love that, man. It's scary as shit to be a nomad, guys. You have to let go so much, but
even if you speak the language, it's still
exactly. It's scary. You're letting go of a version of yourself, and but on the other side, there's a lot of amazing opportunities and things. And I've been praying a lot myself, and I feel like just prayer is a form of manifestation. Some people are energy-based, some people are faith-based, some people are science-based. I hope that you can be a camp of all three, just to see the benefits of talking to that higher power, because there's just a sense of peace and ease that you get after a prayer. Like, I was heard. Like, things are coming. What I want is here. There's a difference between trust and hope. And trust is like, what I want will come, and hope is like, I want it, but I don't know if it will come. and I feel like you're in a big trust energy right now in that journey. So I'm excited for you, man. That's awesome. I'm happy we did this.
Okay, same here.